Here's a pretty easy trick I use to speak to crowds full of people smarter than me, more experienced than me, older than me, more competent than me, richer than me, probably funnier than me. Okay, you get the idea here. And when we speak to people that are operating at a slightly higher level than us, it's very important that we tread lightly and that we don't come across as some schmuck in the eyes of these schmucks. So I've used this exact framework, this exact tiptoe strategy to speak to crowds the size of 2,000 people a couple of times, win some public speaking competitions, and receive a few standing ovations in the process. So it's pretty simple, but it works, which is the best part. So with this, there comes two major shifts we have to be aware of. So there is one major shift from you to me. You to me. It's very egotistical, it's very narcissistic, it's very egocentric, okay? But it has to be like that. And it's not all those things. Let me elaborate. That's a very big word. Let me explain. Let me adjust my case a little later, homie. The second thing we have to do is we have to play into their power imbalance or into that dynamic which they are so used to, right? They're higher ups, they're experienced, they're veterans in this company. It is natural for them to be a bit dismissive of the person who just got there, right? What do you know? You don't understand this company, you don't understand the culture, you don't understand the market. What is your insight to me? Is it valuable? No. Are you smarter than me? No. So basically they're up here and we're down here and they kind of know it. That's the hard part. So we are gonna play into that, okay? Play into that role. And we're just going to say, let them be smart. Do not challenge any of the power imbalances or any of the dynamics which are already in place. Okay, and if you can do these two things, you will win. Let me begin with the right part. Let them be smart. You be dumb. Dumb in brackets. Not exactly. I don't mean come across as incompetent. I don't mean come across as unknowledgeable or poorly prepared or like you're just winging it. That is not an excuse to not know your work. That is not an excuse to not be prepared. That is not an excuse to not speak well, okay? By letting them be smart, all I'm saying is do not challenge their authority. So they're kind of operating up here and we're down there. We do not want to go up there and challenge them at their position or at their height. What we want to do is we want to make it sound like what we have down here is so cool that if they ever want to come down, they are invited. And then once they come down, then we can show them our toys. Okay? That sounds a little in the wrong context. That would sound pretty weird. But if they don't want to come down, that's totally fine. Okay? But what we have to do is we have to display that we're so good, they naturally want to come down. And the only way we can do that is by speaking well. So let's begin. Yeah. So that's the concept. We are not going up there to challenge them. We're just going to be down here. And if they want to come down, we'll show them how special we are. Okay? Or how good of a speaker we are, or what insight we have. Okay? So this transition from you to me is how we essentially do all of that. Okay? Because before, what we'd be doing is we're saying, this is how you make more money. This is how you become healthier. This is how you become more fit. Okay? This is how you do all these things. And that doesn't work because they're already operating up there, and now we're shouting up there, hey, this is how you climb higher. But you're beneath them. You know, why would they listen to you? So we're going to tell them, this is how I climb higher. This is how me, monkey, make more money. This is how me, monkey, stay healthy. This is how me, monkey, make muscle in gym. Okay. So and how do we essentially do that without sounding like a monkey? There are methods to this, okay? So what we do is we display our vulnerability. We want them to be vulnerable and come to us. Doesn't work like that. We have to go to them. We have to be vulnerable. We want them to be warm and nice. Doesn't work like that. We have to be warm. We want them to be welcoming. Doesn't work like that. We have to be welcoming. We want them to give us a large round of applause. Doesn't work like that. We have to speak so well they have no reason to not clap so loud for us. Does that make sense? So I have these other little things here. We want them to be warm. We want them to take risk of saying a joke, not knowing if they'll laugh. Not them. We will be the ones to display vulnerability, not them. How I, not how you. So how do we express all of that? It's very, very simple. We do it all in one simple 5-letter word called a story. Simple enough, right? And the reason I really like stories, the reason I open up all of my interview answers with it, all of my presentations, all of my speeches, all of my introductions, my first impressions, is because it is so, so good at encapsulating all of that. The vulnerability, the warmth, the humor, the authenticity, the personality. Did I say vulnerability? And all of that. And that is the almost entirely the really the only way to get them to even have the idea of coming down. It's to hear this story. It's kind of like sailors on a boat. We got gold, or pirates. We got gold. We got some exotic fruit like coconuts. We got all this cool stuff. We're up here in our boat and it's a storm and we're cozy. But you're a mermaid though. And they hear the mermaid who's pretty, and they hear the mermaid's angelic voice, and they hear the mermaid singing all these things like, hallelujah. You know what I'm saying? They have no reason to jump into that water, but they do. Why? Because they hear that melody. Stories are that exact same melody, okay? So I'm not saying we're some weird little mermaids that are gonna eat sailors and stuff, but that's the principle we're using. So we're gonna speak so well. We're gonna have such a good story. We're gonna have so much authenticity. We're gonna have so much humor. We're gonna be ourselves so that we attract the right people. And through that vehicle, we will get the right people. We will speak to them. We won't come across as arrogant because what are we doing? We're ignoring that and we're just speaking, hey, this is how I struggle with this. This is how I managed to overcome it. This is what I realized at the end of it. If we're speaking to a bunch of healthcare professionals who really, really don't like the clinical part of their, I don't know, medical job, and they all just like theory, but they don't like showing it yet. They could all be more clinically competent than you. They could all have more money than you. They could all have graduated from better universities than you. But you have one thing which they don't. You have the courage to come and speak about the exact same thing they feel, but they have the fear and they can't express it. All right. So you might be like, yo, guys, I also really, instead of just saying, yo, you got to quit your job. Yo, you got to go do that. Yo, you got to actually change your life. You say, yo, I was going to the clinic every day, but I hated it. I would come back from work to my wife and my kids, and I started disliking them. And once I realized that, I just couldn't live with that. My job was separating my job used to be the one thing I loved. And I've always loved my kids and my wife. And now it was making me, I was hating the both of them, my family and my job. And that's when I knew I needed to change. That's when I quit my job as a clinician. And that is now that I've changed and I focus solely on the academic part of medicine. And I just do lectures and I'm a professor and I teach and I do research and blah, blah, blah. And that has brought me more money. That's brought me more health. I have more time and work-life balance with my kids and my wife. I like what I do. Finally, amazing. So we're speaking to people way smarter than us, way more competent than us, maybe richer than us, maybe more influential than us. But the only way we can actually connect to them, speak to them, and get them to almost come down to our level is by being vulnerable, is by being warm, is by us being funny, is by us breaking patterns and trying to connect to them. And the only way we do that is through a story. It's very, very important when we speak to audiences like this, crowds like that we don't try and come across as us telling them what to do. You know, it's kind of like when you're washing the dishes out of your own free will, out of the kindness of your heart, and someone says, while you're about to start washing it, say, yo, you should probably wash the dishes, bro. Someone's gonna wash the dishes. You don't want to do it anymore, you know? So they don't want to listen anymore. So don't go out there telling them what to do, okay? Because go away, bro. What are you? Who are you? But if you actually have something which they can connect to, they can resonate with, they can laugh with, you can move them. That's force. That's power. That is public speaking. That is the power of a story. So, a little bonus tip before I wrap up is our body language. This goes hand in hand with what I'm talking about in the video. So when we go and speak, we don't want to come across as, hey, you must do this, you must do that, I'm the leader. Firstly, you're not. You're just a little guppy in a big pond, and these are some big ass bullfrogs, okay? So what we want to focus on when we say, when we speak, and when we do all of this talking to these people which are operating slightly higher than us in certain metrics, it's very important that we have something called open palms. We want to display our palms open at all times. When we do that, and we have insight, when we have advice, when we have lessons we want them to learn from, it's not coming across as, hey, you must do this and learn this and write this down because it's important. It's, hey, here's what I suggest. It's a suggestion. Good morning, everyone. I'm Luca, and I hate my job. Does that make sense? So when you give an idea like that, it almost comes across as it's on a platter for them to take if they like it or not. And if they take it, it makes them feel like they came to the idea themselves. It wasn't just simply handed to them or forced upon them. Focus on the palms. This goes back to our primal ancestral instincts. If you have your palms revealed, you can see there's nothing in my hands. I don't have a club, which I'm just going to hit you over the head with and steal all your fruit and berries and produce and your wife and your caveman friends and your caveman. I don't know, I won't just take all your goods. It shows that I come in peace. Good morning. I quit my job and I love my life. I suggest you should maybe do the same. That's how it works. We come across as warm, we come across as vulnerable, we come across as giving them this whole plate to connect with, okay? We do that by transitioning from you to me, speaking about my personal stuff. We let them be small, we let them have their dynamic, and we just say, okay, I'll be dumb for now, but I'm just going to speak about my experience. And they might be operating at a high level in some regard, but it's through the vulnerability, it's through the fear which they have and which you also have, but you just overcome it for that moment and be vulnerable for that moment, which creates this big doorway for you to connect with them. And that's what speaking is all about. So how do we do that? Through a story. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comments or check the link in the description for some personalized advice because it's free. And if you enjoyed, I'm very, very happy. Good luck, my friend. Take care. And I hope to see you in the next one if this was up to your standards. Take care.